The San Francisco 49ers were offered a second-round pick for George Kittle and said no. Why would they do that? And also, which 49ers draft pick in 2025 was labeled as one of the top 5 potential busts in the NFC? Stick around. We'll talk about all that and more right after this. Welcome, everybody. Let's go Niners. My name is Jason Aponte. I'm Jason Aponte. This is 49ers Talk. We're going to talk a lot about what Diana Rossini said, why all of a sudden one of the 49ers draft picks is labeled a bust before he even gets in any snaps. But first of all, if you're here, appreciate you guys for tapping in. Make sure you drop a like on this video. Helps us out more than we know. I won't be discussing this myself. I won't. I have a guest. Someone who's likely to call me a bozo in a few seconds, but someone who's a guest for sure and very respected. Mr. Rich Madrid, how are you, man?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good, man. I woke up this morning to a Scoop City, and this is what they call the podcast between Diana Rossini and Chase Daniel. Diana Rossini, shout out to her. Didn't know, Jersey native, by the way. Had no idea. So, you know, I'm gonna not too much on Diana. But apparently, and this has been a little bit of a back and forth with 49ers Twitter about Diana Rossini because of George Kittle and what George Kittle said about talking about, hey, you know, your sources are off. I believe Diana Rossini was saying that he wasn't going to attend the offseason activities, but it wasn't because of the contract. He took it that way, whatever. Regardless of how that sounds, Diana Rossini has a good scoop that a unnamed team offered the San Francisco 49ers a second-round pick for the services of 31-year-old George Kittle. Rich, you react first, and then I'll go off of what you have to say. You're muted, I think.
Oh, I thought I was unmuted. I caught the clip early this morning with her and what's his name? Chase Daniels or
Chase Daniel.
It's just like, okay, great. Is this news? I don't like, what am I supposed to do with this? This feels like we should have known this last week would have like been a bigger story during the draft or right before it or something. But I mean, I don't know, like, who cares? I probably, you know what, but I say that, but I probably would have. Yeah. Right. He's right. Jeb, who gives AF, but I would have done it, if they would have offered me a second for Kittle, I would have said, hell yeah. But at the same time, I'm glad they didn't take it because Kittle's a hell of a player. And he's someone that's kind of been a face of this regime from the start, like he's been there since day one. And he's just honestly probably one of their best players ever that they've ever had on the team in the last 9 years, not 8 or 9 seasons. So yeah, good. I guess good job for not doing it, but also I don't think anybody should fault them if they would have done it for a second round pick. I guess it offered it, and she didn't. I don't think she said who offered it. So I mean, it could have been
the Bears,
at the end of the
probably,
second,
right?
for all we know.
The Bears probably, right? Because they drafted Colston.
Yeah,
Loveland.
They need a tight end. I mean, Yeah, and Komet's not really a good tight end, so
as much as they say they're committed to him, they've done everything but show you the difference.
Yeah.
All right, Rich, I'll do this. I'm gonna push back a little bit here. Second round pick for a 31-year-old tight end who's at the top of his game is good business. Normally, you don't even let that team hang up before you send over the 31-year-old tight end who's at the top of his game. But the 31-year-old tight end at the top of his game is George Kittle. And I'm going to harken this back to You don't trade for a running back when it was Christian McCaffrey. Well, you didn't trade for a running back. You traded for Christian McCaffrey. You're not trading a tight end. You're trading George Kittle. And George Kittle is so much of what this team is in the locker room, on the field, attitude, everything. The idea that a second round pick is worth George Kittle doesn't equate to a 31-year-old tight end at the top of his game, because it's not the same thing. It's not, in my opinion. Rich just left because he doesn't even care. He doesn't want to hear what I said, but it doesn't equate to me, right? Tight ends in this league, for the most part, are glorified big slot wide receivers. And it's a beautiful thing, right? Like, I'm not downplaying the evolution of the position in the game, but George Kittle's more than that. George Kittle has somehow pushed the arrow up the last 2 years, and I would argue his last 2 years have been better than any year he's put together, even the year that he broke the tight end record for receiving yards. So a second round pick for George Kittle isn't the same as a second round pick for a tight end who's at the top of his game. And I don't think it's an apples to apples comparison, Rich. That's the only thing that I would push back on and say.
Well, there's certainly an argument there to not do it because of that. Like, if you think about like the players in this draft who went in the first round, after the top, I would even put Michael Williams in there. Like, would you trade Kittle for a chance to move up to draft Michael Williams? I don't think so. Who in the first 2 rounds? This is another good way to think about it. And yeah, I would have done the trade or whatever, but in this draft, are there really, in the first 64 players, is there really somebody you're like, yeah, that guy is gonna be every bit of get us every bit of value we can out of a Kittle trade? I don't think so. Outside of like the top 5 picks or top 10 picks, maybe there really wasn't anyway. This really wasn't the draft to do that. So
that's
it's just.
No, that's another thing as well too, right? Like, is the allure of value of a pick of what it could be and what you have often skews the conversation, right? Like, again, my favorite Family Guy quote, a boat's a boat, but the box could be anything. It could even be a boat. You know how much we've always wanted one of those things, right? Like, it's like, what are the odds that whatever second round pick, even if it's a high second from Chicago, where you get it at pick 39, what are the odds that that player ends up even having a fraction of the impact on either side of the ball that George Kittle has? Is another thing you need to consider when we talk about this conversation about why this isn't an apples to apples conversation about, well, a second rounder for a tight end. It's not a second rounder for a tight end. It's a second rounder for George Kittle. That's why it's completely different to me, Rich.
Yeah, because he's not just a tight end. Like, he can, I do think he's probably the best tight end in the NFL. Like, he can block, and he can run routes from the slot, and he can run routes from out wide, and he can run pretty much anything you ask him to. Like, yeah, Kelsey can, but at this stage of Kelsey's career, he's not a run blocker. And he was a damn good run blocker early in his career, but they don't do it with that. They don't do that myth, right? Now.
That was a myth, right? That he wasn't good at blocking at all?
Yeah, that he wasn't a good run blocker, but he really was early on. And now, they just don't use him that way. He just doesn't have the tread or the energy left to do that for the Chiefs. So they don't do it. So he's definitely not, to me, the best tight end in the league right now. It's Kittle. And so I think that's worth more to the 49ers than a high second round pick even. Even in a first, like, man, you'd think that they probably really would consider it, but dude, this regime is not in a position to like take a swing like that. And in this draft, like this wasn't the draft to do that. Like, if you're going to trade Kittle for even a first round pick, like, dude, you better be damn sure that player is going to be everything and then some, because they're not in a position where they can just give these picks away or, spend them on players that may never pan out or aren't as good. Like they're, one, I don't think they do, but would you be surprised if Shanahan and Lynch had one foot out the door? Like if this next year or two doesn't go the way they want it, like they're not in a position to be giving these picks away. They got to find every player they can that's going to be a contributor. And they need the good players they have right now that are still around.
And in regards of Kittle, right? And you're talking about the age. Why aren't we discussing the idea that the 49ers could possibly push him to more of just a receiving guy later on in his career to maximize what he is at the time, as opposed to just like straight up running him into the ground in that way? I think, again, the allure of what a pick can be and what the player is, right? And I think you hit the nail on the head, Rich. For a team that needs to bounce back immediately, that needs to win games immediately, getting rid of the best tight end in football for a maybe doesn't align with that. Now, what did the 49ers do? They went and they fixed all the things that they had to fix on defense, run defense, obviously. They've addressed special teams in every single way, changed the coordinator, literally brought in every special teamer they can find. In fact, their undrafted free agents and the end of their draft class addresses that. I just don't see how that aligns. And for a guy who, for all intents and purposes, the arrow is going up right now because he's had 2 straight years of I feel, his most efficient seasons, his best seasons as a pass catcher. Why wouldn't people be under the assumption that George Kittle is going to be utilized to his strengths as his career moves forward, and not just, hey, this is what we signed him up for, and even if he's not good at it, we're just going to keep running him into it at age 34 and 35.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing they have to factor in is he has been pretty banged up too over the last several years. So, but they obviously don't feel that that's an issue right now with as much as they committed to him. So, Shanahan, he's going to find the best use for Kittle in 3 years. If that's just as a receiving tight end in a more limited role, then that's what it is. But, as long as Kittle's on the field, he's going to be going 110%. He's going to be giving them everything he has. Because he's not that guy. If he can be out there, he's going to be out there. And that's why you keep somebody like that around.
All right. So George Kittle's going to stay. That's fine. Can we dispel the narrative that every single pass catcher on the 49ers needs to run block, especially considering the fact that Ross Dwelley is back on the roster somehow and brought back in? And this has always been my pushback for whenever. Yeah, he is. They brought him back. Yeah, they just signed him back to a 1-year deal. So
if you wanted to bring back,
all right. So look, this has been
bring back Charlie Warner.
So, but no. Atlanta's not going to let Charlie Warner leave because he's far more valuable than Ross Dwelley is, right? And they both went over there. I guess my victory lap that I'm taking is this. Whenever I bring up a wide receiver target that the 49ers should add, whenever I bring up a tight end target the 49ers should add, it's always met with, can they run block? Who fucking cares if they can run block if Ross Dwelley's about to go into his 8th year as a 49er, and they've never once asked him to run block? The 49ers can add people over and over and use them to their strengths. Not everybody needs to run block, and if you need further evidence, it's Ross Dwelley. Ross Dwelley hasn't blocked a pad his entire time that he's been a 49er. They bring him back, and they use him solely as a pass catcher, but yet when I bring up a tight end, when I bring up a wide receiver, when I bring up any sort of person to add to this offense, can he run block? Who cares? He can't play players to their strengths.
I would kind of disagree with that. Atlanta, he barely saw the field in Atlanta except for looks like one game.
Kyle Pitts, though. But Kyle Pitts, Charlie Warner. Well, and look,
Yeah, Kyle. But they brought it, but
get
they had those guys because Kyle Pitts he can't. He doesn't offer anything as a slot receiver because he can't run block. That's the guy that can't run block.
So look, all right, but here's the thing. What's more valuable? Having Ross Dwelly on the roster as a backup pass catcher, but unless it has anything to do with that. As a matter of fact, let me. It's just the idea when I say, hey, there's this receiver out there who can really play. He could help. There's this tight end that could be out there that could be a backup, and it's always met with, can he run block? Ross Dwelly's never been asked to run block a day in his life, and he's about to go into his 9th season in the NFL. Play players to their strengths.
No. Yeah, I mean he did quite a bit in the run game for them several years ago. So I do disagree with that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Go for it.
And in 2020 he had he had that sift block on Aaron Donald that sprung whoever the running back was to seal the game against the Rams the COVID year. I don't remember.
But Kittle was hurt. All these guys were hurt, right? Like, and he had to.
Yeah, but he did. I'm looking at his snap count, his run blocking snaps. He had 260 run blocking snaps in 2020, 196 in 2019, 103 in 2021, and then it declined after that. Like he barely saw the field.
Mm-hmm. Axel says, my favorite tape grinder heart emoji.
He must be talking about you, not me.
Yeah, he's definitely not talking about me because you're the one bringing up 2020 tape where Ross Dwelly was actually a really good run blocker.
He was. So. Like if you're not going to be a pass catching tight end, you have to be a run blocker as a second tight end. If not, then you're useless, and that's why Kyle Pitts hasn't really taken off. He can't. What does Kyle Pitts give the Falcons in the slot that one of their third receivers doesn't already give them, and he can't run
upside.
That's why he doesn't.
Upside, right? Upside, generational tight end talent, and upside generational.
Yeah,
talent.
Who hasn't done anything because he can't win from the slot. They didn't bring him in to be a run blocker. They brought him in to be a pass catcher, and he doesn't do anything for them in that.
Has there ever been more of an overhyped tight end prospect than Kyle Pitts? In the history of the NFL draft?
No.
And you know what's funny? Is I think there's a vibe around the league that they think someone, if Atlanta wanted to move off him, many teams would line up to go get Kyle Pitts. Would you say yes or no to that?
No?
I think they would.
I don't think
you know
so.
why?
I
think they'd say I can fix him.
If they hit. Yeah, I mean, they're just going after traits at that point. And for a guy who's already been in the league for 4 years,
yeah,
like, he's surviving off traits, and the traits aren't working for him. But some team thinks that they can probably do it, sure. But it's like Brock Bowers is like the complete opposite. Like he can't run block either, but he's George Kittle in the passing game. For them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like if you come into the NFL as a tight end, you have to be George Kittle, Travis Kelce, or you have to be a damn good run blocker because they can't use you anywhere else. And then if they know you're on the field and you're not a pass catcher, they know you're running the ball.
Right.
So because you can only line up in certain areas, you don't change the calculus of the defense at all.
Hell yeah, Benali. I still think Shanahan could fix Kyle Pitts. Shanahan is such a hopeless romantic when it comes to players. They thought he could get something out of Jordan Reed in 2020, which he did. By the way,
well, he kind of did.
He kind and not kind of did. Shit, he really did.
Yeah.
So like that's your comparison right there. Almost 20 minutes in, guys. Anybody that's in here, thank you guys for watching. Please give a like to the video. I got Rich Madrid here. We're talking George Kittle. Why Ross Dwelly's a underrated run blocker all of a sudden. I don't know how we got here. But
I don't remember if he was good at it. I just remember the block he had on Donald. And, I might have to go back and watch some of those earlier season snaps. But that's the only reason why they brought him back is because, wasn't this guy that they signed from the Jags supposed to be a run blocker too? I don't know. Yeah.
Your man Grant Grant Cohn, shout out to Grant, man. And I had to disagree with him. And y'all can look on Twitter and see, like, he put up Luke, turn it down. Ross Dwelly has 9 more catches than Luke Farrell. And Luke Farrell's a poor man, Ross Dwelly. And I was like, Grant, for a guy who never run blocks and has to be a wide receiver, having 9 more catches than Luke Farrell is not good at all. It's actually really bad. But for better or worse, I think George Kittle has a clause in his contract that says Ross Dwelly and Trent Taylor have to be on this roster, or I'm not going to stick around. So shout out to him, man, for like putting people on with jobs.
I won't. If Trent Taylor's back for preseason, I'm not watching. I'll just watch. I'll read about the highlights. I can't do that again. That was so terrible.
Rich Madrid, noted highlight watcher. All right, let's switch the conversation real quick. Now that we're at 20 minutes. So there was an article that came out on Sports Illustrated by somebody I believe of the name of Gilberto Montalvo, I believe his name is.
I didn't know the name. I didn't recognize the name.
You read it. You read it though.
Yeah, I saw it the other day, and I was like, "What?"
Yeah.
The title doesn't make sense for the article. I don't know.
So he listed the top 5 most likely busts of the draft in the NFC, and number 3 was Mykel Williams. Now, while I disagree with the opinion, I can't get too mad at the idea of it. Not that he's a likely bust, but there's still a chance that he could be a bust, right? Like I haven't thrown that completely out, but his reasoning was off, Rich. He says his upside is lacking. Why didn't you try Shamar Stewart? Why didn't you try Jalen Walker? And I'm like, wait a minute. Both of those guys' variants are boom or bust. There's a floor here with Mykel Williams where he's going to at least be on this team for 4 years as a contributor, while those 2 guys could be guys that wash out of the league quicker than you can say their name after the 2nd or 3rd year. So I disagree with the idea that the 49ers should have taken a chance on guys that are far more boomer bust than Mykel Williams, and the idea that Mykel Williams is the bust and not Shamar Stewart or Jalen Walker. What do you think?
Yeah. I thought the whole article was really bizarre. There were some of the other players I was like, no, I don't understand why he's listed.
And didn't he pick Slow? Didn't he pick Slow from New Orleans? I'm like, bro, you're not jumping out on a limb here.
Well,
like Tyler Show.
Banks. No, I thought
Banks. Kelvin Banks. Kelvin Banks was 5.
That's one that is more bust potential than anything else.
So Kelvin Banks was 5. Kelvin Banks was 5. Mykel was 3. Like, I didn't understand. But it's just when he was going through the reasoning, it's like he said he's upset with the 49ers for not trying for higher upside, but all those guys with higher upside have like no floor. So I don't understand.
I'm pulling it up right now.
Yeah. I don't understand how one of these guys is a bust who has a high floor, but yet the guys that you're mentioning have 0 floor. And, look, let's face it. I'm not trying to downplay the player. I thought, he did a great job at the combine. Shamar Stewart has 3 more collegiate sacks than I do in 4 seasons, and I haven't taken a snap yet. Like, what do you want me to do about that fact?
That is the most traits draft pick ever. Like, I think if they can, because he had a bunch of missed tackles. Like, he just looked lost half the time. And if whoever drafted him, I don't remember, if they can
Cincinnati,
if they can teach him like actually how to play football.
All right. So the Cincinnati Bengals,
good, but I don't know.
The Cincinnati Bengals needed defense. They needed someone to help Trey Hendrickson, and they said, let's draft this guy that we have no sort of like aim on right here. Look, if he ends up being one of the best pass rushers of all time, the only other player that has had that happen as far as collegiate production to the NFL that actually is an impact player is Daniil Hunter. That's the only player that has had that little college production that has turned it into high production in the NFL. So even if they get Danielle Hunter, that's fine. But the idea that the Cincinnati Bengals needed defense desperately and they went with somebody who can end up giving them zero and is more likely to give them zero than anything else is just mind-boggling to me.
Pierce. Oh, he listed Pierce in here too.
So he listed Pierce, and he said Pierce is the most athletic. But his concerns were clearly putting him down the board.
Why they traded up for that.
And Atlanta spent way too much to get James Pierce. So look, again, I disagree with the reasoning. I think you can make a far better argument about Mykel Williams being a bust based on the idea that he may never develop into a pass rusher and just end up being a edge-setting run defender his entire career, which I don't believe is going to happen, but that's your argument. But to bring up James Pierce and Shamar Stewart as who you should have swung on, that would have probably put them right back on the list if you're going by your own reasoning.
Yeah. I don't like the title. These aren't very good reasons. It's just like opinion. Like, these guys I thought were better than the guy they picked there. Like, okay.
So what are the 5? Can you run through it again? It's
So he had Kelvin Banks at 5. I can see that being a bust. Jalen Walker.
But then he lists Jalen Walker as somebody the 49ers should have looked at number for the just go for it. Just go.
Yeah. He said the 49ers could have taken him with a higher pick than 15, sure, but he's listed as another bust, right? Williams, obviously. So yeah, you were right. Tyler Schuff or Shoe. I don't know how you.
Whatever.
Not
gonna work here. Not gonna work here anymore.
and Walter Nolan.
All right. But Walter Nolan was somebody that we all wanted. Like, for the people that are pushing back on Mykel Williams, they're pushing back because they wanted Walter Nolan, right?
Yeah.
So
the only one I really think
bizarre.
on this, the only one I really think he is right about is Banks.
Mm.
Unless Banks plays guard, I cannot see that guy surviving as a tackle.
Did you hear that famous 49ers shadow draft pick tackle Kingsley Su'Yamaida is going to have to move to guard this year?
Yeah. I saw that.
Okay. I just thought that was interesting.
Just thought that was interesting. Tackle.
Yeah,
the guy everybody wanted to tackle.
Turn it down. Yes, that him and and Roger Rosengarten started and he played like the rest of the year or whatever. But it's just funny to go back. Like, the 49ers don't invest in tackle. Thank God they didn't draft one of those guys, right? What the hell?
So outside of the tackles drafted in the first 2 rounds last year, Colton McKivitz graded better than 4 of them. The only one he didn't grade better than was Joe Alt. And Joe Alt they had no shot at picking him.
And he was the consensus number 1 guy.
Yeah.
And shout out to Colton McKivitz. He's going to get paid somewhere else.
I know. Kingsley, whatever, he got benched a game and a half into the season.
Of course he did.
They signed Jalen Moore. Did you watch Jalen Moore?
They did. Look,
like he's worse than that.
They're going with Jalen Moore and Jawan Taylor, right? Mr. Penalty.
That's the only.
And they're kicking Su'Yamaida inside.
He might be all right there.
But I love that. I love going back. I love going back to the draft. Like, I love going back and looking at everything. And it's like, if they don't take Su'Yamaida, if they don't take the guy, he was getting his ass whipped the first few weeks when they threw him out there like immediately. It was so bad.
Yeah, well, a game and a half. He gave up like 3 sacks in the second game, but everybody tried to spike the ball on that one because he didn't give up a pressure in preseason. against twos and threes. Like Andy Reid always plays the first team offense against, all guys that aren't going to barely make a practice squad. Like, so he gave up 0 pressures playing against dudes that are much.
Shout out to Gojira Von Jenks, channel member. McKivitz will get like 23 million next year. Just watch, easily, hands down. That's the funniest part. Is
every year since
the way the offensive line gets paid. The 49ers have gotten so much bang for their buck with Colton McKivitz that people don't understand that. When you pay someone $2 to $3 million and they are an average tackle and you didn't invest high draft capital in them, that is insane value. And one could make the argument that McKivitz has improved almost every year that he's been a starter. Every year he's gotten better. So if we're going by that logic, he could get better again this year as well too, and really put himself in a position to get a bag. I just think the Colton McKivitz discourse is just out of control. Turn it down. The Colton McKivitz discourse is out of control, man. Like, you would swear, and I saw, and I think you've seen this, Rich, too. Colton McKivitz is the worst starting tackle in the NFL. Not even fucking close. Not even fucking close, man. If we watched any of the other 31 teams, I guarantee you, I can grab you other offensive tackles that are far worse, not even close to as good as Colton McKivitz.
First of all,
yeah, he's not like I think he graded out like in the top third, maybe. I don't remember. It wasn't worst tackle in the league is hyperbole. He wasn't worse than all those guys. I mean, he does have the highest pressure rate of anyone on the line the last 2 years, but relative to 2023, he was much better last year. And I'm not like when they announced that he would be the starter, like I was like not I was not okay with that. I didn't think it was a good idea because everything he put on tape before that was garbage.
McKivitz
going the wrong way, like just couldn't move in space that well, giving up quick pressures, like because he was playing. He was a tackle, and I think he was a left tackle in college, and they kicked him inside to guard for those few years before he became the starter. And then since he moved out to right tackle, it's, he has gotten better, like more reps for him, and he's gotten better. I don't think there's any denying that. And I was like the furthest thing from a McKivitz fan.
Rich, let me ask you a question. The 49ers,
yeah, that's a good point too.
Yeah. That he would start on 10 other teams, 100%. 100%. I would like the challenge I would send is just watch other teams play football. Watch other tackles play football, and you'll see that McKivitz is far from the worst.
Look at the depth around the league, though. Like there isn't just like an untapped pool of tackle or guard potential anywhere in the league. Like after everyone's fifth starter, there's not like a player that you would be like, ooh, I would take that guy to be a starter on our team. It's just not true. Like there's just not enough talent to go around. You've got the Eagles who start a 7th rounder. The Rams start 2 undrafted free agents on their line. And multiple other teams do too. I think the Lions have like the highest picks in the draft on the line with 1st and 2nd round picks only, but they got trounced by first-year head coach and offensive coordinator working together on the Commanders last year in the playoffs. And Jared Goff was like running for his life and threw a bunch of bad picks. And, so what – it's never like about just, take this guy in the 1st round or the 2nd round, or you need to find someone. They got to find someone in the first 3 or 4 rounds, or it just doesn't work that way.
Let me ask you a question. DJ Humphries was signed as tackle depth. And I'm operating under the assumption that the backup left tackle to Trent Williams is Spencer Burford, but DJ Humphries is here to play either side. What should 49er fans expect from DJ Humphries? Because I don't think that he's going to come in here and jump anybody for any spot. I think he's just valuable depth.
Is this the guy they just signed?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I honestly don't know anything about him. People keep saying I keep seeing people saying he was a Pro Bowl tackle, and other people saying this guy
that was years ago. That was years ago.
All the games recently, so I don't know.
So you know what's funny is Burford's your left tackle. Burford's your left tackle behind Trent Williams. So like that's not up for debate, especially when you draft Connor Colby and you bring in Moss as well too. Like you have enough at left guard. You're gonna figure that out. Either him, Moss, Colby, or Barch is going to start at left guard. But like, you know, it's weird with offensive line because Matt Pryor was with the 49ers and everybody was just like, oh, he's like this backup journeyman guy. He started for the Bears, and yes, the Bears offensive line was bad last year, but he wasn't the reason the Bears offensive line was bad, right? So there's a little bit to the idea of, yes, this person has been a journeyman, a little bit of a struggle somewhere else, but he fits somewhere else. Because I was watching Matt Pryor play last year, trying to figure out why, you know, the Bears offense wasn't working. When the offensive line broke down, it wasn't Matt Pryor and it wasn't Jenkins. It was everybody else. And Matt Pryor was like our third lineman last year as well too. So like the idea of bringing in anyone to be depth, it's not a bad idea because you never know what you can unearth.
Right, but you also don't know, like I said, you don't know what's out there. Like they took a swing on a guy who might be okay and might not. Like, but that's just the reality for every offensive line with their 2 or 3 backups. Like they don't know if those guys are going to be any good. Or, you know, the Chiefs went into a Super Bowl that one year against the Bucks playing like 3 or 4 guys that were second and third stringers,
mm-hmm.
And they weren't good. They got their asses handed to them.
Well, I'll say this. I think with the general health of offensive lines across the league and the way that marginal offensive linemen are being paid because of how thin it is, adding any offensive lineman at this point, as long as they're upright and they can play, is not a bad idea. Like no move should be looked at as, oh, this player is here to take this player's spot. Bodies are bodies. And offensive line is so thin. Everyone wants 5 All-Pros on their offensive line, but show me where they have that. Every team has weaknesses, some more than others. Offensive line is just, it's hard to gauge in the NFL. And watching 32 teams across the league, there are far worse offensive lines than the San Francisco 49ers. And, you know, the idea that we can even say that they're an average line, it shouldn't be taken as something bad, given what they've put in to like resources, draft picks, the money, given that, right? Like, so it is a little bit of a give and take. And I think the offensive line discourse has gotten a little out of hand.
They're not bad. They're not bad at all. I mean,
they're not bad at all.
You know, the last 3 or 4 seasons, like there have been top 10 O lines that don't make on teams that don't make the playoffs. And there have been teams that with worse O lines than the 49ers that made the playoffs last season. So it's far from the worst situation on the team, I think.
Okay, I'm back. Yeah, all right. Let's do this, Rich. And shout out to everybody that's in here. Again, guys, if you're here, subscribe to the channel, hit that like. The like helps us out a bunch, man. Shout out to the channel members. I see Gojira, I see Jesse. Shout out to everybody who's been tapped in. I found out this weekend, Rich. 49ers fans are far more excited about Alfred Collins and CJ West than they are Michael Williams. And what makes me say that? This makes me say this. I posted 4 video clips, film clips, all 22 of each player. Probably one of their better plays, most likely. The Michael Williams clip in which he bats on a pass in a bowl game, it got about 1,500 views. CJ West and Alfred Collins clips are over 20,000 views easily. And it was highlighting them as pass rushers, which is not their strength at this moment. But Rich, do you get the sense that there's a little bit of excitement more towards Alfred Collins and CJ West than there is the number 11 pick for the San Francisco 49ers?
Yeah, just based on stuff that I've seen, people say like they just,
Yes.
I think people think that they reached in this fan base, at least what I've seen. I think people think they reached on Williams.
Hey, yo, Axel, you did that on purpose, but fine. But keep going. No, all right. So look, they think they reached. A lot of people think they reached on Michael, but like CJ West, when I was watching him, and the game that I chose too, and it's what's funny is when you do film, it's almost an exercise to see how people view things, right? So I picked the game that CJ West went crazy as a pass rusher. The one game against Michigan. He had 6 pressures. He had a quarterback hit. He had a sack. He had like 4 hurries. But he never got anywhere near that in any of the other games. And then I picked the Alfred Collins game in which he had 5 pressures. And I posted those things. And I think it's funny how you can post clips from certain games without giving context and people will just get excited about it. But what if that was the one game, the only game that they had in which they were good as pass rushers? I think we know what both of them are. They're both very good, stout run defenders and defensive tackles, and the 49ers need to address that. But like the idea that now we're like projecting them as these huge pass rushers, and I think we want that to happen. You could start a narrative. You just pick the clips from the games that they actually had some good pass rushing reps without showing all the other times where they just weren't a factor at all, right?
Yeah, you can say whatever you want with a few clips. Somebody posted who's the receiver they just drafted?
Jordan Watkins. Watkins.
Yeah, somebody posted some clips from a game he went off, had like 3 touchdowns, and then it's like, oh, cool. Like, but then you look at the rest of his stat line for the season, and it's like, well, half of his production came in that game.
He had 3 touchdowns in that game. He had 5 on the season.
Yeah. Yeah, that's why I don't know. Looking at the stat lines can tell you a lot, and they can also just not tell you anything because, if he had that stat line, people go, well, why wasn't he picked sooner or something? Or, they got great value for that. Well, he was picked where he was because he didn't have the production, probably because there's things that keep him from hitting those benchmarks. And it's the same thing for Collins and West. They were second round, or I don't remember when they picked West, 3rd round, maybe
4th round,
4th round, and Collins was 2nd round, right? I think they were later picks for those reasons. Like, they have things that hold them back from being the top 2 or 3 at their position, and that's the case every year.
Well, it's funny because the 49ers got dinged for a bunch of reaches in the draft. And again, that's consensus board. And we know that the 49ers board is nowhere near the consensus board. We get that. But CJ West was their value because there were so many people that had him much higher. Like, some people had CJ West in the 2nd round and he went in the 4th. I think right now we're in a downtime where the draft class needs to be graded and projected. And if I were to tell you the 5 names that the 49ers had with their first 5 picks, but didn't tell you where they were drafted, and all 5 of those guys, relatively speaking, all contributed in meaningful ways, some of them more than others, who cares where you got him, right, Rich?
Yeah. I agree.
Yeah,
I was
like
just looking
if,
at Dane
all right,
Dane
Brugler's,
Brugler's
dude,
guide,
how does
and
that
he
guy
had
do that? All that
specific-
stuff.
Dude, it's insane. He's
How
grinding
does he
all
have?
year though, man.
Yeah,
That's how
that's
you do it.
insane.
You start 2026's draft right now. Like that's what he's doing. And then you just fill in the gaps through the season.
Which one of you nut jobs is already doing 2026 mock drafts? Show yourselves at this point, especially when we don't even know like what the draft order is going to be in
That's
any
my
in
favorite.
any form of. Good.
My favorite posts after every draft. The way too early 2026 NFL mock draft. Dude, the draft just ended 5 minutes ago.
They got the Giants. They got the Giants at
They're
number
just
one,
waiting
but I have
to
a.
extend.
No, well, they have the Giants at number one in a lot of them, and I just have a sneaky feeling that the Giants are gonna win like 6-7 games and like be annoying and be competitive regardless of their schedule or whatever with like Russell Wilson and
How
that
many
team.
games do you think they'll win?
6 or 7.
How many? Yeah, but they'd be lucky to win 6 or 7 with Rush, Jameis, and God,
Dart?
the guy's name. Yeah, not
What about-
gonna work here anymore.
Yeah, not Dart. What do you mean? They got to keep him for while he's cheap. Tommy DeVito, you better go find a job, pal. Jesse Rodriguez, channel member, by the way, he said that he's already filled out a 2026 mock draft. You absolute sicko. We love it. We love to see it. But yeah, like again, I think with the overall mock draft and all that stuff or whatever, it's like, man, we don't even know who's coming out, anything like that. Here's one for you, and I know you have a strong opinion about this. The whole Drew Aller thing is like, oh, Drew Aller is gonna be like a top something. Like one of my Giants friends, buddy, was like, I don't understand why we went for Dart when we can get Drew Aller, and I was just like, I don't know if you want to do that either. Like, like I was like, look, I was like, there's a world where like neither of those guys are good.
There definitely is. And Arch Manning is another one.
He might not come out
I
though.
don't think he's coming out next year. Yeah, I don't think he's coming out.
I don't think so either. And why would you come out when you're gonna make $45 million? As a college starter, and you get all the runway to do whatever you want.
I'm so hot and cold on Drew Aller. Great regular season quarterback, got to the playoffs and just completely fell apart. I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm up and down on him. And those
again,
are some of those times. The playoff games are the games that really tell you a lot about some of these guys.
All right, let's talk about this real quick. Because there's a Chris Kosaric conversation that's jumped out in the chat. And I have strong opinions about him. Anybody who's watched me lately or is a channel member kind of knows where I stand. Gojira Von Ching says Thomas Kinlaw Jackson. Now, I do want to say this. Chris Kosaric joined in 2019?
18.
Okay. 18. Yeah. So Solomon Thomas was drafted the year before. He did bang the table for Javon Kinlaw. We know that. Drake Jackson, just failure after failure. I'll give you DJ Jones, but far more failures than success. My issue with Chris Kosaric is the hits that he's credited for are players who have been in the league. Charles O'Menahue, Arden Key, Kerry Hyder, all guys that have been in the league. They've all been in the league. What I need a hit from with Chris Kosaric is a draft pick. I need a draft pick to get here, and I need you to get credit for developing that draft pick. Now, with Kinlaw, we understand he was injured. We get that part, but that was the 49ers not looking at his medicals and again, at the end of his time, he ended up being a very solid defensive tackle.
Yeah, however, when he was healthy, he put it together.
Right. But however, when you draft a guy that high, you don't need solid. That's not what you're drafting him for. Right. And he's a little bit of a victim of his own draft capital. But for me, Chris Kosaric has to develop a rookie, a draft pick, someone who is being brought in from college develop that player as opposed to a
Someone
player
not
who
Nick
has the
Bosa.
skills and been playing. Right. Bosa. That's
Nick Bosa was the easiest pick in the world.
I could have developed Bosa. The shit. But I just think, look, the Chris Kosuric thing is he deserves credit because he has turned around a lot of players' careers. And I think that's the reason that Yetur Gross Models is still here and you believe. But I need you to do that with Michael, with CJ West, with Alfred Collins, because that's far more important to the lifeline of this team going forward.
Yeah, I agree.
Ziggy Ansah, that counts as well too. Tony says, shout out to him. Tony, channel member as well too. Benali says no one predicted Drake Jackson would get injured. Didn't he have injury concerns too in college as well? Like, and they just kind of just went past it and they just looked past it and they were like, it's fine. Like we're good with him.
I don't remember. I don't know. I wasn't
not tapped in on Drake Jackson.
No, I think I kind of saw the hype a little bit, and then people really blew up the 3-sack game he had against the Steelers. And if you watch the sacks,
yeah, but two of them were cleanups because of Eric Armstead.
Yeah, they were all cleanup sacks. Eric Armstead flushed everyone to him, or flushed Kenny Pickett to him every time.
Kenny Pickett.
I honestly don't remember.
Noted quarterback stud. Noted quarterback stud, Kenny Pickett. Jesse Rodriguez, channel member, shout out to you, man, and also excellent profile picture as well of Gator from other guys. Question, guys, will Kyle allow any rookies to play, or will he play less talented veterans? I don't think he has a choice on defense. And offensively, they didn't really draft anybody, so I don't think they have a choice on defense.
Last year.
He played.
What were you gonna say?
Well, my thing is, he has to play these guys now.
Well, yeah,
off of just pure depth.
Pooney was a starter. Renardo Green played most of the season,
but he didn't start.
He
didn't start though.
He didn't start, but he played.
He
played
did
a lot.
Malik started.
Pearsall played as soon as he was. Yeah, Pearsall started as soon as he came back from his gunshot thing.
Garendo played when everyone else was Garendo was played when everybody else was dead on the roster. When everybody like literally they were like, all right, get in there, Garendo. We believe in you, man. Like, all right, man. Like, you had to wait for everybody to get injured before. But this year, I don't think he has that luxury of waiting. I think all those guys have to play on the defensive line. The one guy that I will give some runway to, and I think that starts and it's kind of interesting, is Upton Stout at nickel. I think he has a far better chance to start day one in that nickel position. And the Nick Martin and D Winters thing, we're gonna find out pretty quickly how that goes, man. If D Winters is he's not capable of finishing games and Nick Martin just is, then he already is an asset, right?
Yeah, I'm still watching a lot of the tape on some of these guys. I just haven't gotten through a lot of it, but yeah.
All right, here we go. 55 minutes. Thank you guys for tapping in. Again, if you're here, just drop a like as well too. I'm gonna get out of here because Everly's over there and she's ready to make a move, and it's time to get up out of here. But
hungry family giving me dirty looks to get.
Yeah, no, you got it, man. Rich, tell everybody where to find your 49er stuff. I don't think that's happening for your Packers stuff though. Sadly, I'm sorry. I mean, you could tell them, but I don't know if they're gonna go look.
Well, the 49er stuff is just the Substack linked on my Twitter. West Coast Football. The Packers is Acme Packing Company. SB Nation.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, Rich, for joining. Thank you guys for tapping in. It's just, Friday stream and everything as well, too. Again, if you're here, like this video, please. That helps us out more than you know. A subscription is more than welcome. Appreciate you if you like the content. I promise I won't wear Yankee hats every single time. Just, today is just what I was wearing, But as always, thank you guys. Thank you, Rich. And anybody that, has any sort of idea for any content that you want down the line, please, leave in the comments and feel free to throw it out there. But for Rich, for Jay, we're out of here. Peace. Welcome, everybody. Let's go Niners. My name is Jason Aponte.